Moving on to our focus on Nigeria's extractive industries. Now, the importance of the extractive industry here in Nigeria makes it imperative for policymakers and all stakeholders in the country to ensure that the right legislative frameworks are in place to regulate activities in the sector. Now, that's according to CSR in Action, a non-governmental organization. Now, the organization believes that the level of transparency and accountability in the industry is less than desirable and wants the federal government to go back to the drawing board. Bekeme Masade, Executive Director, CSR in Action, joins me now in the studio for a look at Nigeria's extractive industry space. Thank you so much, Bekeme, for being here. Now, you have highlighted a number of challenges that the extractive sector in Nigeria continues to suffer, as it were. For you, what are those major factors, 2 or 3 of them, briefly?
Okay, the thing is the implementation, of course. We're having a seminar that's focused on policy, affirmative action and sustained growth, because the problem is not actually the lack of policy, it's actually implementation of the policy. And then obviously the challenge of implementation is as a result of the people who have to implement these policies, as well as the procedures or the structures, the institutions available to enforce these policies. So these are the challenges. If you have the best legislative framework and you don't have the desirable elements in place to enforce them, then nothing is going to happen.
Now, it's funny you should say that, because the Nigeria Extractive Initiative, Transparency Initiative, NATI, was established Act 2007 and was actually meant to address especially the issues of transparency and accountability. Now, and I've heard them, I've seen some reports where they say that, they come up with these annual reports and many of them go largely ignored by the federal government. So they say you can't point fingers at us. We do our job, but the federal government doesn't pay any attention. Yes,
the funny thing is we've always had NATI attend these conferences. We have the executive secretary coming again this year. The unfortunate thing about the sort of democracy that we have is that you can only just talk. You can't actually make the people in power do the things that you advise them to do. Yes. So you actually do not get the support that you would want to get from them. So everybody can comment as much as they like, but nothing seems to be done. I mean, although I do think that in terms of what we have now, at least you can talk and not fear that you'd be arrested as we had, in the past. But then there's only so much that NATI can do in regard to that. So if we do not have commitment from either the government or the private sector, and then nothing is going to happen. I know that the private sector players are more committed towards, governance in this area right now. They've behaved poorly in the past, but I know that a number of them are, engaging communities. We mentioned affirmative action before, so they're working on collective decision making, and they're listening more, and they're trying to behave the way in Nigeria that they would in other subsidiaries outside of Nigeria. So whether the government has a will or not, as an organization, we believe in collective responsibility.
Because I was going to ask you, if you get the stakeholders, the government, policymakers, all the stakeholders in industry, you get them into one room, what are you hoping to achieve? Because wouldn't it just be, at the end of the day, advocacy, hoping that they would do something after they leave?
Yes, and that's the point that, that's why you definitely have a lot of conferences, but then what differentiates ours is the level of engagement that we have. It's not a stuck-up formal affair. We encourage people to really drill down to the basics. So we have the key representatives. It's not just about government officials coming, senior people coming to talk. We have Dr. Ezekwesili coming this year. So it's not just about that. We actually have community representatives, and we have a post-event report, which obviously
does it track perhaps commitment level or some kind of progress, success in the advocate for the conference itself?
What it does is take it beyond just a conference, this post-event report that I mentioned. So we do send it to key players to guide decision, and we have it available on an online portal, csrinaction.org, which collects this sort of information. So you have this there, and then it doesn't just go away. It was last year's discussions that threw up the fact that policy implementation is a problem, which is why this year's sub-theme is focused on policy. really.
Okay, so going forward, you are optimistic that this time, obviously you have said that some success has been recorded, bringing stakeholders together, and then when they leave, something is done. So were we taking that a step further this time?
We're hoping that we will get partners who want to drive this a bit further and, you know, with each other, because not one business or not just us or some abstract or standalone NGO can generate the sort of change that we want. We are hoping that we are able to work together with the different relevant actors to drive the change that we require. So it's a bit more than just advocacy and just talking. It's about pulling together the requisite resources and taking action.
Okay.